You filled it with care. Rich compost, loamy soil, maybe some coconut coir or vermicompost for moisture balance. At first your plants thrived, but a few weeks in, the soil began to drop. By mid-season, the bed seemed to have lost inches. And by the end of the season it looked like a trench. You top it up each spring, only for it to sink again. If this cycle feels familiar, you're not alone, and it's not your fault. Soil shrinkage in raised beds is one of the most common frustrations gardeners face, but few realize why it happens and what they can do to fix it for good. Today, we're diving deep, literally and figuratively, into the science behind sinking soil and how to build a raised bed that holds its structure, resists erosion, and feeds your plants year after year. Let's uncover the truth about disappearing soil and how to stop it from sinking ever again. The real reason your soil shrinks so much. The first thing to understand is that the soil isn't vanishing, it's breaking down, settling, and in many cases, being consumed. Raised beds are often filled with a high proportion of compost, which is fantastic for nutrients but, unstable in structure. Compost is basically organic matter in decay. That decay keeps going in your bed, especially when conditions are warm and moist. Fungi, bacteria, and worms get to work, breaking it down into simpler compounds, releasing nutrients but also reducing the overall volume. You might lose several inches in just one growing season, and that's just from microbial activity alone. Now combine that with gravity and watering. Every time you water your bed, you're compacting the air pockets and speeding up decomposition. Add in plant roots drawing up minerals and all the organisms feeding on carbon, and your raised bed kind of turns into a mini ecosystem that's constantly shifting. The result? Well, you get a sunken, compacted bed that needs refilling far sooner than you might have expected. But that's not the full story. How fungi and soil life contribute to sinking. Compost-heavy soils break down quickly because fungi and bacteria are doing their job. They're transforming dead plant material into bioavailable nutrients, but in doing so, they collapse the fluff that gave your bed its loft and texture. Fungi in particular play a major role. As they decompose lignin and cellulose, the woody parts of mulch, straw, or compost, they reduce organic volume dramatically. So this is why even adding so-called fluffy materials like shredded leaves or straw just won't prevent sinking, if those materials aren't balanced by something, a bit more permanent. If your bed is filled with nothing but soft, easily digestible organic matter, it's honestly just going to collapse. And unless you actually change the base recipe of your raised bed, it'll just keep happening. Why adding more compost isn't the answer. A lot of gardeners top up with more compost thinking it's a good thing, but doing so just resets the cycle. You add fluffy material, it breaks down, the soil sinks, and, well, you repeat. This also leads to a dangerous nutrient imbalance over time, especially in closed systems like raised beds. Too much compost can actually lead to salt buildup, nitrogen overload, or even phosphorus lockout. And honestly, it does nothing to stabilize the structure of your soil in the long term. So what does hold your soil up? It's not about adding more, it's about adding better. The secret to stable soil really comes down to structural carbons and natural binders. To fix soil shrinkage permanently, your raised bed needs two things: structural carbon and natural binding agents. These materials, don't break down easily, they provide habitat for microbes, and they really resist compression. Biochar is actually one of the most powerful solutions. Made by charring woody materials without oxygen, biochar resists decomposition for decades. It acts like a scaffold in your soil, holding up softer materials, maintaining air pockets, and providing a home for beneficial microbes. A second stabilizer is aged, semi-composted wood chips. Not raw chips, which steal nitrogen, but chips that have aged 6 months to a year. These still have lignin and cellulose, giving them structure but won't rob your soil of nutrients. Another underrated stabilizer? Shredded cardboard. When compressed into layers and moistened, cardboard mats form a semi-stable floor that resists erosion and filters water. So cardboard holds soil in place while feeding fungi gradually, which really helps reduce rapid collapse. Fixing a sinking bed without starting over is totally possible. If your raised bed has already sunk, you don't need to tear it apart. Start by gently aerating the top layer with a fork, then layer in a mix of semi-aged wood chips, shredded cardboard, and just a small amount of biochar. Add compost only as a nutrient top dressing, no more than 2 inches. Water the bed deeply to help material settle, then mulch the surface with straw, leaves, or dry grass. This prevents further compaction from rain and watering. Over time, as these new structural elements integrate with the old soil, your bed will stop collapsing and start holding its shape season after season. Preventing future sinking with layered bed design. The best way to avoid sunken soil is to build your raised bed like a layered cake. At the bottom, start with bulky materials like rotting logs, aged wood chips, or tightly packed cardboard. This mimics Hugelkultur, which is a German method for long-term raised beds. These base layers act as sponges, holding water and structure for years. Above that, you want to mix in topsoil with compost and, just a touch of sand or volcanic rock dust to add some mineral structure. So, go ahead and blend in biochar for resilience. Then, top it all with a lighter mix of finished compost and your planting layer. And, don't forget to finish with mulch. Always mulch. When soil sinks, it's not just inconvenient, it actually affects root depth, moisture retention, aeration, and, nutrient balance. Shallow, compacted beds really stress your plants, reduce yield, and honestly increase disease risk. Fixing this problem at the structural level gives your garden resilience, even in heat, rain, or drought. It's not about doing more work, it's about working smarter. The right foundation can eliminate the need to top up every season, and once you get it right, your raised beds will perform better, last longer, and support healthier, more vibrant crops. Build beds that don't sink, and watch your garden thrive. Don't fall into the trap of topping up compost endlessly. Fix your raised beds from the ground up, literally. Use structural carbon, aged woody matter, and layered design to create soil that doesn't just feed your plants, but holds strong all season long. If this helped you understand why your raised bed soil keeps shrinking and gave you real tools to fix it, don't forget to subscribe to Hydrohaven and share this video with fellow gardeners. Your support helps us create even more practical, science-backed gardening solutions. Let's build beds that don't give up, and soil that only gets better with time.